CalazCon is a show about war, obsession, colonialist occupation, and the many forms of violence those inflict. See the description for content warnings specific to this episode. Welcome to CalazCon. This is the Legislature session for Cycle 1. This episode will be sponsored by Erica Baca, aka Nyan Hellcat, and the Legislature is sponsored by Gabe Gonzalez. I'm Austin Ramsey. I will be your host and the Speaker of the House, Fabrizio Catana. I am joined today by Brendan.
Hi, my name is Brendan McLeod. I'll be playing Red Philodendron here in the Legislature.
Thank you. I'm also joined by Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'll be playing Dr. Clepsydra Kane.
I'm joined as well by Gavin.
Hi, I'm Gavin. I'll be playing Kagan Fishy Fishel.
I'm also joined by PB.
Hi, I'm PB. I'll be playing Gishlak Nil, here to represent the Blue Sky Endowment.
And finally, Snuggs.
Hi, I'm Snuggs. I play Zendre Mavis, and I have the privilege to represent the 86.
And while we're just doing introductions, Brendan, Gavin, and Anna, could you do who you're representing, starting with Brendan?
Yes, thank you. I am representing a squad that has inherited the mantle of zero accountability that is now known as Pizza.
Thank you. And Anna?
I'll be representing the Farm Upstate, our R&D squad.
And Gavin?
I represent my friends in Terminal Company.
Wonderful. All right, so the Legislature on Logel is certainly not as large or impressive as the Legislature in most DFS planets, because this is not yet a DFS planet. There is still Jovangelian resistance, and off in Hestial, some distance away from the Legislature, there is now also the CalazCon occupation occurring. The Legislature itself is in a somewhat impromptu space. A university lecture hall is being used, a very large one. It's a somewhat ambitious choice, assuming it never goes back to the university, for it has seating for over 2,000 students, which has now been taken up by the various representatives on Logel. So it's a rather overly spacious place to be holding so few representatives. As they said, this is ambitious, and hopefully the number of representatives will grow as the people of Logel accept the DFS. But for now, there's just a few of you. And in particular, we're going to be focusing on the Hestial Subcommittee, who are made up of the representatives here, those who represent the squads in the Hestial Front, one of the last especially hot theaters of the DFS's efforts to liberate Logel. As the Speaker of the House takes their seat and bangs their gavel twice to signal the beginning of this session of the legislature. What's everyone's sort of demeanor and posture as this session begins? It's going to be the first session since CalazCon touched down and occupied Hestial. Dr. Kane, what's your demeanor?
Dr. Kane is hunched over one of the desks and using her stylus pen to scribble some notes out on one of her holo displays. There's a very focused look on her face as she's going through notes, cross-referencing items, double-checking all of her data sheets, trying to make sure that everything is in the right order before the session officially starts.
Wonderful. And what about Red?
Red is, I think, seated a little bit further towards the back than is maybe appropriate to do, is sort of very, very deliberately holding himself aloof from the rest of the seated individuals, and has a combat knife that he is carving a Avi into one of the desks with.
A bit childish.
A little bit.
But I'm sure the desk, being in a former university, is probably already carved and sharpied to some degree.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think maybe he found like a marker picture that he is now like he's taken his inspiration, is now just like whittling out.
Zendre, how about you?
Zendre is sitting before an entire mess of notes, very disorganized, very disheveled. He's trying to kind of connect A to B. It seems like he had been staying up all night and had to make a lot of last minute preparations. CalazCon hit. So he's trying his best to sort of roll with the punches and see where do we go from here. And all the while, he's twiddling a pen between his fingers, kind of like a drumstick, very dexterous, but also very fidgety. Sometimes stopping to kind of click it with his thumb. He's looking up around everyone else, puts the pen down, takes a deep breath.
Great. And what about Kagan?
Fishy is sitting back straight, looking around a little bit, smiling, just happy to be here. Has one sheet of paper in front of him. Not waving to anybody, but just soaking it all in.
And Gishlak?
They are sitting maybe a little bit further up than a couple of the other representatives here, a little bit closer to the front of the hall, where I imagine the speaker is set up. And they are sitting very comfortable, probably the most comfortable of the 5 people in this room, the most used to being in situations like this. And they have a few notes laid out on their desk on a couple tablets, but they are right now sitting back and reading an actual physical book on political philosophy, obscure political philosophy.
And while we've got you here, Gishlak, what's your look and what are your beliefs about the other reps?
Let's see. Gishlak is a middle-aged person. They're always wearing relatively long, flowing robes, usually in a dark blue sort of range. They have a sharp, angular face with hair that has gone pretty much completely gray. They've got very light skin with kindly blue eyes. So that's their general vibe. They also have the vibe of someone who is used to being seen. This is someone who, has staff that helps them make sure their appearance is consistent. And let me look at their beliefs. I believe that Zendre Mavis reminds me of myself 20 years ago, so I think he has great potential. For Red Philodendron, I'm just pretty sure that Red has committed some war crimes. There's definitely some judgment in that thought.
Uh-huh.
With Fishy, I want to live up to Fishy's faith in the system.
Just to be clear, that's Kagan Fishy Fischl.
Kagan Fishel, who prefers to go by Fishy if I'm not incorrect.
That's correct. My friends call me Fishy. Everyone's my friend.
We'll see about that.
And then for Dr. Clipcyber Kane, I think that she understands the true purpose of our war here on Logel.
Speaking of Dr. Kane, could you describe her look and beliefs?
Yeah, so one of the most striking things I feel like about Dr. Clipcyber Kane is her lab coat that she wears. She worked with the R&D squad in the field for a few years and wears the lab coat still mostly as a keepsake. It's not something that is necessary in like the legislature, but it's still around. Under that, she wears like formal clothes, like a white button-up shirt, suspenders. Her long black hair is tied into a bun, the kind of bun that would have been very neat and tidy at 8 a.m, and it is no longer 8 a.m. Her right arm is actually a robotic prosthetic, and in that, she often holds a hollow pad to view all of her notes. Yeah.
And your beliefs about the other reps?
About Zendre, I said, we share a similar past. If we weren't here, we might have been friends. About Red, Red's methods will only make the war harder to win. He must be tempered. For Fishy, I said Fishy could be a good ally, but only if he agrees to win the war before we leave. And Kieklak knows the way to the hearts of the people of Jovengol.
Great. And Fishy, what's your look and your beliefs?
Fishy is a young man, 1920, wearing the DFS military uniform. He's tall, he's loud, he's got this big, like, garlic bulb, beautiful nose. I have a belief with Zendre Mavis. Us newbies need to stick together. Red philodendron. What's this guy even doing here? Kieklak Nil. I had squad mates who defected from Jovengol. Was Kieklak their inspiration? And my belief with Dr. Kane, their ends are right, but their means concern me.
All right. Red, what's your look and beliefs?
We've got a couple of younger members of the legislature here. Red is definitely on the opposite end of the spectrum. Red is like an older man, maybe 50, maybe 60. It's kind of hard to tell. Receding white hair, but is still large, is someone who is clearly very athletic, very, very tall and well built earlier in his career that was spent in the military, and is now sort of uncomfortably placed in a plain gray suit. He looks 50 or 60, but to look in his eyes is to think that he's 1,000 years old. He has this great sense of both. He seems very burdened, and he seems very judgmental that other people do not realize the sense of that burden that everyone should be carrying. My beliefs are very reflective of that sense. My belief for Fishy is that he is about as noble as the paper he's made out of. My belief for Zendre is he's a guppy in a tank full of hungry sharks. My belief for Kieklak is that they are a nightmare of a human being in a gaudy bathrobe. And for Dr. Kane, the good doctor has altogether too much faith in humanity.
Very
These are
positive
brutal.
person.
Yeah, well, play to find out.
And what's Zandre's look and beliefs?
So Zendre is fairly tall, pretty lanky, kind of just very skittish in a certain way. Maybe they kind of cave under pressure, or maybe they have something to hide. As for beliefs, their belief with Fishy is that we could mutually benefit from each other's causes. Their belief with Red is that he could benefit from the first-hand experience that Red has to offer. With Dr. Kane, he respects the diplomatic approach, even if that's a bit easier said than done, and with Gishlak, Zendre thinks that they have a very keen grasp on propaganda, and that kind of makes Zendre wary in a certain way.
All right. With all the beliefs and looks, and we've got an idea of how everyone is in this first meeting of the legislature since the arrival of CalazCon. Audience, we are using some experimental rules to handle this legislative process. So there may be a few bumps along the way, but it should be an exciting experience for everyone. Now, the first step of the legislative process is check to see if any of the squad representatives here had their drives fulfilled by the actions of any of the squads during the prior set of missions. So this will also help us to further get to know our reps. So, Zendre, what's your drive?
Zendre is very sympathetic of the 86's plight. They are worn down, tired soldiers who just kind of want to get this job done and get out. And so Zendre is kind of committed to that cause. I think there's a bit of sympathy there because Zendre kind of knows people who have been just sort of worn themselves down by being a willing cog in a machine that just kind of ground them apart. So, help old veteran soldiers retire.
That's his drive? Help old veteran soldiers retire?
Yep.
Okay. What would be needed to accomplish that? I suppose showing that they've done their part and are perhaps past their prime? What do you think?
Yeah, kind of displaying it's like, look, these guys have done their job. You've kind of seen that they're throwing all the punches that they can, and they can't throw anymore. Why don't we cut them a slack,
Okay. I think actually the 86 did help fulfill that. The squad you represent, because they are the veteran soldiers you're hoping to get out, and they completed their mission technically, but also did not complete the secondary objective, which was equally as important as the main one, I think, to the DFS. Their primary objective was to remove a major transport hub from the hands of CalazCon, and their secondary was to capture it for the DFS, and instead they blew it up, which accomplished the first and did not the second.
Heck yeah.
Let's go.
It's a very
Explosions.
quick summary. All right. Red, what is your drive? Oh, sorry, I should have said, Zendre, make sure to mark a drive tick for that.
Yep.
Red's drive is to take control of Hestial through chaos and war. Red's a former soldier himself. Red was, in fact, a spy, an operative who went undercover and went missing / redacted for a very long time. And a lot of people, I think, assumed that he was dead until he was announced as the legislator that would be here on Logel. Red is not bloodthirsty in his own mind. He's simply pragmatic. He thinks that chaos and war are here and they're here to stay. And that to deny that and not to take advantage of that is foolishness.
So it sounds somewhat like missions that perhaps perpetuate the war between the DFS and CalazCon and or the Jovangelians in their course would be something that would further Red's drives. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I think he'd see that as part of the plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Would the farm of upstate triggered that?
Definitely. I was trying to think about the other squads. So you get at least, and thank you for speaking up, Anna, about what your squad which drives your squad might have contributed to.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, the farm upstate, their mission was to retrieve an antenna from a Jovangelian squad by making the trade of fixing something for them, and instead they stole the antenna and also stole the thing they were supposed to fix.
Great.
Which, yeah,
Nice.
pissed off the vermin. Did anyone else just have a straight fight? Yeah, actually, the 86 would have furthered that. They had a gunfight with some Jovangelian Marines while blowing up that CalazCon logistics center. So they certainly weren't endearing the DFS to anybody on that mission.
I mean, from what I hear, my constituents assassinated someone. So
Yes, that is also true.
yeah,
I'm just trying to think about whether or not how much chaos that actually caused.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Because it was an aid to someone who was trying to get off-world specifically.
Sure.
So
That's
I
a good
don't,
point.
I don't think that one actually counts.
Terminal company, maybe? They went outside the bounds of their mission that Pizza had hired them to do.
Hell yeah. Good.
Right. They did also, however, aid CalazCon by making sure their show went smoothly. So,
Yeah.
I don't approve of that whatsoever.
yeah, I feel like those maybe balance out.
Okay.
Oddly, like, because they messed up a Jovangelian squad while aiding a CalazCon squad. So it's sort of like a net zero for DFS positivity.
Love that.
Yeah, and then,
The Blue Sky Endowment had a similar sort of situation where they helped a Jovangelian squad while harming a CalazCon squad.
right, and what did they get up to?
Let's see. So they were, my understanding, or at least Representative Nill's understanding, is that they worked with the Hive, which is like Jovangelian civilians in Hestiol, to get people out of some of the parts that had been, some of the more like war-torn parts of the city, and had to get them through Curse, which is like the simulation of famous battles from Calazar, and came face to face with the 501st, who are cosplayers of the evil faction in Calazar, and ended up, I believe it ended with our officer getting into like a public fist fight with their leader.
That's a whole drive clock right there.
I've also heard whispers that maybe that one of our Blue Sky agent or soldiers left something, or consultants because they're a consulate, left something in Curse. Something's a little bit weird with Curse now, but I don't know details on that, and I'd rather not know.
Okay, yeah, you know what? I think with that particular edition, that's a very good point. that definitely adds to the chaos. So, Red, take another drive tick.
How many ticks is that? 3?
I think, yeah, that's 3, right?
Oh, jeez.
Be home by Christmas.
You chose the metagame drive. Everyone's going to cause chaos.
All right, let's hope Red uses that filled up drive clock for good. Fishy, what's your drive?
My drive is cut our losses and get out of here. So I was on one of the first, like the vanguard of people who came down onto Hestiol. And my squad of toughs, Sword Squad, got obliterated, except for me. And because of that, I realized that this sucks and we should leave. So I ran against the incumbent of Terminal Company and somehow won, probably partially because that guy was an asshole, probably partially because Terminal Company realized that a child shouldn't be on the front lines. And by child, I mean like young adult.
I was going to ask, how old is Fishy?
19?
Oh. I see.
All right, so were there any missions that would help cut our losses and get out? I think the 86s was kind of like that, honestly. They destroyed the logistics chain, but also did not invest in sticking around by trying to take the logistics center for the DFS. Farm Upstate, I don't think they did, because they're just stealing shit. Pizza did an assassination, which does not feel like cutting losses.
It does not, I'm afraid.
Or getting out. Let's see. Blue Sky helped some refugees escape. I think
That sounds like getting out of here.
Yeah, it does. So take a tick for that. And who am I forgetting? Terminal Company. They got into a metaphorical fist fight and helped put on a play. So, no, I don't think that those help your drive any further, Fishy. So I believe that's 2 ticks.
Yep.
Okay, Dr. Kane, what's your drive?
My drive is win the hearts of the people of Hestiel to the side of the DFS.
Okay.
Which is basically hard mode of Red's drive, now that I think about it.
Hey, good luck.
Yeah. I think Blue Sky helped with that, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So you get at least 1 tick there. You said the people of Hestiel, so I don't think that Terminal Company helped you out with putting on the play. If you were interested in CalazCon liking the DFS, you would have gotten a tick for Terminal Company's actions.
I don't think that's as much the concern for Dr. Kane.
Yeah. So I think it's just Blue Sky, which isn't terribly surprising because your drive is basically the Hearts and Minds faction goal clock that the DFS currently has, which, to be clear, is not an issue at all. It just shows that your drive aligns with the current goal of this faction as a whole.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah, and Blue Sky was the only squad that actually furthered that faction goal, so it makes sense that you only get the 1 drive tick.
Yep.
And Gishlak, what is your drive?
My drive is by far the most important and consequential of all the legislators here. My drive is to make the next arc of Calazar more blatantly anti-war. So,
Nice.
Gishlak Nil was originally a young member of, Jovangelian minor noble family. You know, something like 13th cousin to the emperor or whatever, or the empress. But they defected as, a young teen for reasons that they publicly say, they just came to a political consciousness, saw that the DFS was better, blah, blah, blah. In reality, it's because they watched a specific arc of Calazar that, completely broke their heart, and they realized, oh, wait, the evil empire and Calazar is exactly Jovangel. So they defected, they became, a PR win for the DFS, 30 years ago, became a political pundit, spent a lot of time talking about politics, and was a strong voice opposing war and imperialism, but now that it's come back to their home planet of Logel, all of a sudden they're completely in favor of the war. Also secretly writes fanfiction.
Okay, so you're trying to make sure, you're basically trying to alter the course of CalazCon's, of Calazar's stories.
What was that play about?
Well, see, the main objective of that play was to make sure the play went as planned, and it was a recreation of an episode from Calazar, so it definitely wasn't a subversion of a Calazar story. So unfortunately...
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah, that doesn't add Gishlak's drive, and I think that was the only one that was possibly likely to do so.
That is perfectly fine.
Yeah. That is the first step of the legislative process complete, which is to check everyone's drives, because anyone with a full drive clock can spend that clock on a 1-to-1 rate to have additional votes assigned to a proposal. So right now, Red has a secret back pocket vote that he can invoke on any point in which we're voting. So the voting is going to have 2 stages. The first stage is going to be strategy, where we vote on which overall strategy the DFS, the Democratic Federated Systems, takes in the next cycle. Any squads that don't have a specific mission next cycle will fall into the strategy. The second stage of voting is going to be when the representatives vote on specific missions for specific squads, which is why the strategy is important, because anyone not directly captured, so to speak, will just fall back to the overall plan. But before we get to the votes, it's time for each legislator to take 2 parliamentary actions. They can either do a speech, or they can trade horses. So, we can do these in any particular order. Actually, it might be a good idea to alternate, I think, between speech making and trading horses, unless we end up with much more of one than another. So, why don't we start with a speech? Is anyone's character going to give a speech in the subcommittee for the Hestial Front?
I think that Gishlak is here ready to give a speech.
Okay. And do you have accompanying slides?
I have a couple accompanying slides. Let me get my notes pulled up.
Does the speaker know this ahead of time and call on Gishlak, or does Gishlak charge to the front?
I think that they have, made it clear that I would like to speak on this matter.
Yeah, there's probably a sign up before each session. We'll say. I mean, that's basically what it is, right?
Right.
Piece of paper outside of the auditorium.
Yeah.
Yep. And so Fabrizio Catana says, the House Speaker recognizes Gishlak Nil.
Thank you. And just one brief out of character, Gishlak Nil is a better orator than I in real life can be. So, just take this with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Assume that there's a little bit more charisma there than I have to give. My fellow representatives of it within this subcommittee for the Hestial Front. This war was supposed to be over in a year. We are now in the 3rd year of this war. A stalemate is threatening to spread. A swamp. A place where we and Jovangel are locked in combat far too long, wasting resources, wasting lives. No one wants this. But today we have an opportunity. With the arrival of CalazCon, we have an opportunity. The situation as it stands now is we are all at war with one another. The DFS battling Jovangel, battling Exodus forces as CalazCon. I pose that we can break our stalemate quite easily here. If we work with CalazCon, if we are to perhaps set aside our current aggressions against CalazCon and reach out with a olive branch, a temporary alliance or collaboration to drive out the Jovangelian armies still hiding in Hestial, then we can make a great headway in this battle. As you can see, we now have 4 arrows pointing towards Jovangel as opposed to their 2 against us. Our forces together are stronger than theirs. Now, of course, you might be concerned, if we work with this other third party, where will that leave us if we do defeat Jovangel? Well, I have put together an estimate of how long the conflict will take, the occupation here will last between the 2 factions here. CalazCon only lasts 1 year, after which they will pack up and leave. Sure, there may be a few stragglers, some Exodus corporations that try to edge in, but the vast majority will leave, leaving Hestial and Logel to proper democracy. If we let Jovangel stay, if we do not work with these fan warriors or whatever they call themselves, Jovangel and their soldiers and their insurgency will remain here for decades. I think the choice here is pretty clear. I think we cannot see enemies around every corner. We can make friends just as easy. Thank you. I yield my time.
Lots of polite clapping from the other members. What's everyone here's reaction if the camera turns away from Gishlak as they take their seat? What's Zendre's reaction to this?
Zendre is very kind of looking at the chart, looking up and down, and kind of pondering internally, would this actually work? Would they actually receive us as allies if we really reached out to them? He's considering the plan. There is merit here. But also, there's rumors that he's heard on the rumor mill of, how zealous, the participants of CalazCon can be. They might just not, be open to talks.
Mm-hmm. So because Gishlak gave a speech, everyone gets to add a new connection with Gishlak on their character sheet. So I think that your reactions will probably be a good basis for what new belief you might have about Gishlak. So, Fishy, what's your reaction to this speech?
Fishy's conflicted, partially for reasons that will be revealed later, and partially Fishy never considered working with any of the other factions to accomplish any goals. So they're scribbling on that one piece of paper, furrowing his brow, suddenly having a bad time.
Red, what does the camera see of your reaction to this?
Red is stone-faced, but he is paying very, very close attention. I think he's giving Gishlak the privilege of a lot more of his consideration than anyone else since he walked in the room.
And Dr. Kane?
I think Dr. Kane is just the tiniest bit exasperated. I think we see on one of the the holo displays a very similar but differently labeled chart that she has to push away and minimize and reword now. Is understands the merits of the plan, but thinks it's going the wrong direction.
Okay. And speaking of Dr. Kane, do you have a horse trading scene in mind?
I sure do.
All right. So who do you want to trade horses with? So while you think about that, for the audience, horse trading scenes are between two legislators in private where they hash out a deal. The deals are primarily for one legislator to gain votes for their cause. Through this, the legislator can trade as many +1 die and -1 die supply modifiers as they want. These tokens will apply to their squad's next reward roll from the DFS. The legislator that initiates the horse trading gets to add a connection with the person they picked. So you trade votes for budget, and budget for votes.
I think I'm trying to decide if I want to have my scene with Gishlak or with Red. With Gishlak would be continuing the thread of this conversation, and I feel there's interconnected tissue there. But for Red, I feel there's I described Dr. Kane's drive as being Red's drive, but on hard mode earlier, and I think that's very accurate. So being able to put that difference on screen early sounds fun to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's the one I'm leaning towards. A horse trading scene with Red.
Okay, so where do you meet Red, and how do you... Oh.
Austin, can I ask a mechanical clarifying question before we proceed? So we're going to be voting on strategy, and we're going to be voting on tactics, correct?
Correct.
Are our votes for both of those votes coming from the same pool, or do our votes reset between rounds?
Your votes reset between rounds. So Zendre will have 3 votes for the strategy and 3 votes for the missions.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so Dr. Kane, where do you meet Red, and how do you initiate this private meeting?
I think there's you described this as being a very big university auditorium kind of space. And I think at the back of the room, towards the back of the room where Red was initially sitting once we first opened onto the scene, I think there's a small table with a coffee machine set up. It's one of those ones that's been kind of passed around from office to office, and it's a little beat up, but it still works and is still functional, and that's what matters. Mm-hmm. So I think Dr. Kane tries to initiate the scene by asking Red if he would like a coffee.
Lead the way.
Okay.
There's probably a big stack of completely mismatched coffee mugs.
Oh yeah.
Just everything that's been scrounged.
Yeah, with logos from different squads that don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, old mech brands or Obby brands, that kind of stuff. But I think the way this opens is Dr. Kane sort of pours herself a cup and says as she's pouring one for you, is I'm going to cut through a little bit of the formalities and just get straight to the point. I think we'd be best served if we worked together and voted for a strategy of liaising for this next round. I know it's not your style, It's not your MO, but if you'd hear me out, I think we might be able to make some progress.
Takes a sip of the coffee, sort of the grimace of drinking coffee that is not there to be good, is just there to be coffee.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is my style, Doctor?
She blinks 3 times. Well, your style is that of a soldier. This is a war, and the only tool you know how to approach it with is the hammer, the sword, the gun.
Those are 3 very different weapons, Doctor. I think you can appreciate that you would use a scalpel a little bit more differently than a bone saw. Who would we be liaising with?
The people of Drevengol.
The people that we're at war with.
Yes.
And what leads you to believe that such a liaison would be possible?
I want to preface this with, don't view me as an idealist in this. I know how this comes across. I know what this looks like. But I'm saying this not from a place of naivete. I'm saying this from a place of pragmatist determination. If we go along and continue to cause chaos and continue to burn down the Hestial itself, this war is going to continue indefinitely. Or if we take the scorched earth approach, there's not going to be anything left by the time this war ends. So, we liaise. We don't try and win the war everywhere here. We try and win the war for Hestial. And we do that by talking to people, making relationships, building connections. People don't want this war to go on forever, and we can leverage that.
Doctor, I respect your forthrightness, and I believe you when you say you're coming from a place of pragmatism. I come from a place of experience. I think his tie is already a little bit loose. He's not dressed to the nines, as it were. Mm-hmm. And he yanks his collar back a little bit so you can see his clavicle. Mm-hmm. And you, being a doctor, can see the telltale sign of what was a very, very bad wound. A scar right over that gap between the bones. And he says, I was stranded on a Space Hulk one time with a Jovangelian pilot. We were the only ones left. And for 3 days, we were the only living thing that either of us saw. I had the stove and she had the rations. I had the batteries and she had the signal. Neither of us would have been alive if we hadn't worked together. And then, when the shuttle came to pick me up, she drove a knife right into my chest. I've talked to these people before, Doctor. I wouldn't trust a word they say. And he lifts his mug, and I think heads back to his seat.
As you walk away, a shot of, Dr. Kane, arms crossed, looking down.
Sounds like there was no exchange of budget or votes there.
I don't think so. Good scene, though.
All right. But Dr. Kane, you do get one more connection with Red.
I sure do.
We'll review people's new beliefs about the reps at the end once all of these actions are taken. Does anyone have another speech they'd like to make?
I have a speech. Fishy has a speech.
All right. So, Fabrizio Catana says, the Speaker of the House recognizes Kagan Fischel.
No hearts, no minds. I want to begin this speech by thanking the Farm Upstate for sponsoring Terminal Company. Their generous support of supply and technology keeps our front line strong. Dr. Kane, thank you. With that out of the way, I must speak hard truths. I have not held this position long, but even I can see we are shit at public image. Hold on. We need to retake this, sorry.
I don't know. Is this actually how it goes for Fishy?
Yeah, no, Fishy says that in character.
I'm missing a slide.
Fishy walks off the stage, takes a deep breath, walks back on stage.
Where is this slide? There it is. Okay.
This is the most graphic design is my passion presentation I've seen in a while.
He's a child.
I love
He's
to
19.
see someone on their first day of school.
None of that happened.
Uh-huh.
But take two. Kagan gets up with his one sheet of paper that he scribbled on. No hearts, no minds. I want to begin this speech by thanking the Farm Upstate for sponsoring Terminal Company. Their generous support of supply and technology keeps our front line strong. Dr. Kane, thank you. With that out of the way, I must speak hard truths. I have not held this position long, but even I can see we are shit at public image. Our consulate squad is on the brink of war with CalazCon. There's no reason for us to throw live troops after dead. Instead, I propose we pursue a more productive strategy. One even a rookie like me can see we should have done a long time ago. Secure the borders. CalazCon never should have landed. With insulated borders, we can siege CalazCon and Jove. Starve them out. Folds up the piece of paper. Thank you. That's all I have to say today. The rest of my time can go. Thank you.
What's Dr. Kane's reaction to this speech?
I feel like it's something just shy of head and hands. Like there was the initial like, oh, I'm glad you're like thanking us for giving you weapons and such, and then oh no, how do I want to describe this?
For context, we have the tuner in our squad who has sponsorship decals.
That's
and
really
we are sponsored
funny.
We are sponsored by the Farm Upstate.
I really love that. That's like it was a good bit. It's like I feel like this is the second time today where there's been a speech and it's just been like, oh, you were so close to hitting the mark and then you just completely missed the way from her perspective, of course. And I think it's just like, oh, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with this person, aren't I? Like okay, there's another thing on my to-do list now. It's that kind of feeling.
What's Red's reaction to this?
Red gives a slow, not a ironic clap, but like a polite clap at the end of this short but sweet speech.
And Gishlak?
Gishlak is kind of offended. 'Cause you said that PR's doing a bad job, and that's like my squad's whole job. So I'm offended both at the content and the presentation of your speech. You swore while you were speaking in front of the entire subcommittee.
And Zendre?
I think there's just a head tilt, a lip slant, and a head scratch. And maybe a quirked eyebrow.
All right. Everyone remember to add a new connection with Fishy. Does anyone have another horse trading scene?
I know I want to horse trade with Fishy at some point, but that is not right now.
Should be from the 86er pizza. Zandre or Red should go next, I think.
I agree.
I was kind of thinking maybe doing a little bit of horse trading with Gishlak.
Absolutely.
So where does this meeting occur, and how does Zandre have Gishlak join him?
I think Zandre catches Gishlak in the hall. Gishlak might be walking along, and then, just Zandre's loitering up against the wall, arms folded, kind of like tapping his foot against it. And kind of like, sort of like being, oh, hey, fancy meeting you here.
Yeah.
As Gishlak approaches, might have orchestrated this, might have just bumped into each other, but is like, oh, hey, Nil.
Yeah, Representative Mavis. What can I do for you?
I was actually thinking about your proposal.
Yes?
How
How did it strike you?
I think there is a sound investment in it. However, what do we actually know about CalazCon? What do we know about these people?
We know that they are very devoted to, is it a book or is it a show? I'm not quite sure.
Are you asking in character or out of character?
Oh, in character.
Okay.
all of my misunderstandings about this is completely intentional.
I think there was a hybrid ARG stage play once.
Oh. Yes, okay, I might have heard of something like that, but anyway, this, these are a bunch of devoted fans, and I know that they have Exodus backing and all that. But there's also some genuine good in there, Our values aren't entirely misaligned.
Right. But if we really want to get onto their side, we should have to learn how to think like them, don't you think? Learn what makes them tick, their ins and outs, what makes them so passionate. Shouldn't we have people investigate their fanaticism?
I feel like fanaticism is going a little far, but...
Sorry.
I see what you're saying. We need to understand each other better.
Right. So if we can learn their ins and outs, we could come to them with your proposal, and, maybe they'll think it's worth hearing if they know that we're in the know. If we, and he does air quotes, get them, so to speak.
Yes. So are you asking me to vote for a specific proposal here?
I'm thinking about implementing a plan to send a subversive operation in to, I suppose, go undercover and circulate and kind of immerse themselves in the CalazCon culture, and kind of learn the ins and outs and bring whatever info that might be useful back to us. That way, we could implement your plan to reach out to them in a more diplomatic manner. What do you say?
There are risks here for sure. Whenever we do something that involves espionage, we have to consider what happens if the espionage fails. But I'm definitely intrigued. I have one problem here, Representative Mavis, which is my voting power in this subcommittee is relatively weak, given that the Blue Sky Endowment is still just getting off the ground. So if I am going to back you on this, it's going to be a significant investment of my own resources. So I can't promise that a better offer might not come along.
Well, just something to consider, perhaps.
Of course. The 86, right? That's your squad? Sorry, out of character. Yeah. The 86 always has a lot of great technology and a lot of great resources, and also a lot of great, just general goods. And, the Blue Sky headquarters at the university have been looking a little sad.
Well, maybe I can kick something your way.
I mean, if you could, then we can each help each other out.
Zendre pushes off from the wall, kind of plucks his pen out of his coat pocket, kind of twiddles it a bit, clicks it a couple of times, very, that one James Bond guy sort of deal. Says, great, maybe we'll keep in touch. And turns and walks down the hall.
Good.
Great. So just as a note about horse trading scenes, they do not have to be in the legislature. They could have occurred before this session and been at a cafe or whatever.
Like a flashback, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or we could take a recess and just meet somewhere else, right?
Yes, that is also true.
Yeah. I imagine this was during a recess.
And then, side note, Brendan, I just want to check. You've got base votes 3 for pizza. I don't know why that is, because pizza's tier 2.
I should,
right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I should just have base votes too.
Yes, and then they're also at war right now, right, with Tempestia?
They are at war, yes.
Yes, so they've lost a hold as well. I think that knocks them down to 1, doesn't it?
I thought they took a squad upgrade to mitigate this.
I don't believe there is a squad upgrade that mitigates the...
You would know better than me.
Loss of hold.
Dang. Redacted. They have infirmary and cover business and deadly. So, no, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right, and I might be down another vote.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to keep acting like I have 3 votes.
Even though you should have 2 and actually have 1.
Yep.
All right.
So at the end of that horse trade, did we actually exchange anything, Snuggs?
Well,
It's up to you. You're the one who initiated it.
Zendre is willing to, and I believe I am within power to do this. Zendre is willing to push, some supply your way in exchange for a vote.
Yep. All right, so that would give me a +1 supply roll modifier and you a -1.
I believe so.
Is that how that works?
Yes, it is.
And you have Gishlak's word that they will vote with you on your plan to investigate. I guess, out of character, is this a request for the general strategy or specific squad tactic to vote for your proposal?
Let me look real quick, because I had it brought up. The investigate strategy.
All right, good.
Red, do you know what you want to do next?
I was going to do a horse trading.
I had a feeling. You don't really seem like a speech giver.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
Until the right moment.
Right. I think I'd like to have a horse trading scene with Gishlak.
Okay, everyone wants to piece me today.
Yeah.
Just before we get into that, I just want to remind Zendre to add another connection with Gishlak for initiating that horse trading scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, and Red, you do likewise while we're thinking about it. And let's have that scene. Where and how?
Yeah, I have a new Gishlak ability, or excuse me. I get +2 with rolls when Gishlak is within 5 feet of me.
Nice.
Yeah. I have a new belief with Gishlak as a consequence of that speech, which is Gishlak is dangerous and that could be useful.
Ooh, yeah.
To wit, I think we have offices here in the university building, for whatever we might need to do as far as getting your work done. And I think you get a message that Red would like to meet you in his office.
Okay. Is your office door open or shut when Gishlak comes
I think
by?
it is shut. I think this is like a cubicle that might have once belonged to a teacher or a teacher's aide or something like that. There's a window looking into it from the hallway, but the blinds are drawn.
All right. You hear rapping on your door.
Yep, there's no response, but the door is unlocked.
All right. Kind of cautiously opens the door a little bit.
Yeah. Red is here. Red is sort of looking out the window at the city. But what is more striking is that the office practically has nothing in it. You've seen some of these other offices. There's probably secretaries and attachés and stuff like that. They at least have, their paperwork and the stuff that they need and chairs and stuff like that. This has Red, and it has a desk, and it has a backpack near the door where you come in, and it has nothing else inside of it.
It was now a good time?
Absolutely. Come in.
Okay. Should I shut the door?
I think that'd be wise. I always shut the door when I go in.
Shuts the door behind me.
Turns, takes his hands out of his pockets. I appreciated that speech that you gave earlier. I think that you're on the right track.
Thank you. I'm glad that we are thinking along similar lines.
I think that if we are entreating our allies or our would-be allies, we must not make the mistake of turning our back on what the Jovengels might try to do.
Yes, we have to be wary that they might try the same thing.
Or simply take advantage of the lull in the action to embark upon some other scheme, whether reorganizing their troops or securing some new foothold or embarking on whatever sort of devilish schemes they may have afoot.
Yes, I completely understand. We can't turn all of our focus simply to building a new collaboration. We don't want to call it an alliance yet, just in case things go badly. That would be embarrassing in retrospect.
It's very early in the day to be building alliances.
Exactly. But we need to keep, our other foot, keeping Jovengel at bay, maintaining the stalemate until we can break it,
Zero Accountability is perfectly positioned to do that. They are already engaged with one of the Empire's most dangerous adversaries. I am perfectly happy to pursue this strategy of CalazCon investigation, so long as...
I think actually my original proposal was more along the lines of liaison.
That is Brendan's mistake rather than Red's. I am perfectly content to pursue this strategy of CalazCon liaison. Gives a small smile. So long as the new Zero Accountability is allowed to continue their agenda. And this, of course, is me offering to vote for the liaison faction strategy, so long as Pizza gets the squad strategy of attack.
Absolutely. I certainly won't vote against something else with Pizza. After all, it's not really my business what you're doing over there. That's the whole point of Zero Accountability, right?
That's the idea.
Yes, so as far as I'm concerned, I have no idea what our simple pizza delivery business is doing, and it's none of my concern.
I'm glad to hear you say so. Thank you very much.
Of course, of course. Oh, by the way, do you need help finding staff?
Gives sort of a very...
Take that as a no.
Very, very slow smile. And Red says, Nil, I have a real knack for finding exactly what it is that I'm looking for.
Well, good. You're of course free to stop by my office at any time. If I'm not in, you can, leave a note with my secretary.
I'll keep that in mind. Turns back towards the window.
Okay, I'll see myself out.
All right.
Okay, so that sounds like there was no exchange of supplies, but there was a promise of who is going to vote for what.
I think so.
Yep.
Yes, so just for the audience to know, payment in supplies is up front, but whether or not you go through with your voting and what you said you'd vote for, that occurs on the honor system. So you can absolutely get a down payment and then change who you're voting for and with.
And just to be clear with Red, I was basically agreeing to not vote to send Pizza to do something else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Instead of you don't think that you're getting a commitment out of me, and I'm going to spend my one vote on your plan for Pizza to attack, right?
Yes. I think so long as Zero Accountability isn't being explicitly called out as, and they are going to help with the investigation in this way, that satisfies what Red was looking for from that meeting.
All right, good.
Maybe,
just making sure we were on the same page.
Yeah, baby steps.
Great. Thanks for listening to CalazCon. This episode was edited by me, Austin Ramsey. You can find my work at austin-ramsey.itch.io. Sound balancing for this episode was done by Christine Blight. You can reach her for voice acting at CVBlight@gmail.com. The show's music is by Devin Nelson. You can find them on all social media at Devin Decibel. If you'd like to support CalazCon, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/CalazCon. Please tell your friends about the show too. Remember, all glory to Calazar.